man, white, heterosexual. How are privileges protected? Often invisibly.
Secondary benefits at first are not a resistance strategy to protect male or white privilege, but they can become one. For example, things are better today, but for years, when you took an interest in the issue of gender equality or women's rights, as a man, you were considered a hero. You were immediately seen as an extraordinary guy. Today, things are better because we've seen a lot of men proclaim their feminism before it was discovered that they were sexual abusers. So as a result, that has calmed things down a bit. If you walk around a park as a man with a baby, suddenly something happens. You're so cute, you're so sexy, you're so wonderful. Whereas a woman walking with a baby in a park, nobody pays any attention to her. That's what we call secondary benefits. That is to say, advantages, rewards that you receive when we belong to a dominant group, male, white, and when we deviate, even just a little, just slightly from the norms of our dominant group. So obviously you have to be very careful. First, because it's very pleasant. It's very pleasant when people shower you with praise. So it's a trap. So either you are in favor of equality and you try to make things change, starting with yourself, because you believe it's the right thing to do, or you do it thinking you'll get secondary benefits because in the end, that's all that really interests you. And so it can also be extremely nourishing on a narcissistic level. The problem is that we risk becoming counterproductive. We might even make things worse because we start thinking as individuals and stop thinking about the system. And so we become a good individual, a good person. And we believe we become omniscient and can allow ourselves anything, including the worst. For example, this leads male authors to write books in which they proclaim themselves to be righteous. Righteous, that's the word that was used to describe people who risked their lives to save Jews during the Second World War, as if being on the side of equality was risky, as if denouncing racism and one's own social position. As a white person, as a man, put us at any risk at all. There is no risk in that. The only risk is actually gaining some secondary benefits from it. Then there's the whole question of masculinity. We're told that there are different types of masculinity. Toxic masculinities, hegemonic masculinities, or on the other hand, complicit masculinities. So obviously, the men who define this classification, they always place themselves on the side of complicit masculinity, of course. The toxic ones are the others, as I've already mentioned, the bad guys, the men from the global south. Muslims, men from lower social classes, the poor, etc. Everyone except me. Now, obviously, there are men who are more violent than others. There's no doubt about that. But personally, I would never say that I am not toxic as a man. Because my social position, my existence as a social agent in a certain place within the system is toxic in itself. Because I only exist as a man, only in relation to women. What defines us is a difference in relative position that is hierarchical. And it's exactly the same thing when it comes to the issue of skin color. As long as I am considered white and that gives me social privileges, it means that others are deprived of them. What could be more toxic than that position? So it's clear that this is what needs to be questioned. It's the systemic aspect of social domination, including analyzing and especially starting with my own position, and not starting to see myself as righteous or an accomplice or whatever in order to get rewards. Because as men, we pretend to behave well, and even that remains to be proven. That's why I think that as men, we can't define ourselves as feminists. We can't use that word. Because even if we are sincerely very supportive of equality between men and women, we experience the opposite of inequality. Women endure it, we benefit from it, it needs to stop, but it's not the same thing. Even if it's unintentional, it's not the same thing. So we can try to move toward the same goal, toward equality, but by moving in the opposite direction, what we call women's empowerment, that is increasing their capacity to act, requires the opposite for us, disempowerment. We need to be aware of the endless path ahead of us, one that we will never be able to fully travel, because we will never be able to put ourselves in the shoes of a woman or a racialized person, etc. I think that's the only way to stay clear-headed and not fall into the trap of secondary benefits.